Hi again then guys, and welcome to another Rivals Showdown, and this time we're pitting the two ultimates head to head, the top tier vehicles of Gran Turismo, the RedBull X2011, which as far as pure spec and straight line speed is the ultimate Red Bull in the game, and the Tomahawk, in particular the Tomahawk X, of course, the ultimate speed machine of any Gran Turismo game, not of course including hacks, mods, cheats, glitches, etc. Now, as always, I have put more in-depth reviews and tunes for these two vehicles in the description below if you'd like to check those out. But for now, let's find out purely from a top trumps points style perspective which vehicle wins, and also how each vehicle drives and compares to each other around the track. First up then we have the RedBull X2011, the ultimate incarnation of the Red Bull as far as Gran Turismo goes. It has been replaced of course by the X2014 fan car in particular, but that vehicle doesn't have as impressive as a spec as this car, and it's also not as quick in a straight line. Quite far off the speed in fact. This vehicle's capable of, since a few updates, about 330 miles per hour at best now. It used to be capable of around 350 or so. The acceleration is, as everyone knows, absolutely insane. Unlike some of the other Red Bulls, unfortunately you cannot change the colour on this car, which I personally would have liked, but instead we get that bare raw carbon fibre look which all of the prototype or test versions of the Red Bulls have. Now, as far as value for money, it is far more expensive than the Tomahawk, 6 times the price at 6 million credits, and that's a lot of cash, but it's not hard to see why. As far as absolutely insane performance cars on Gran Turismo go, this is pretty much the OG. There have been other fast vehicles in the past, such as the Escudo on Gran Turismo 2, but none have ever been so overwhelmingly and ridiculously OP as the Red Bull. It started that trend, and the Tomahawk basically just took it to the next level. Now, it's interesting to note that although these two cars are both the ultimate speed machines on Gran Turismo, they are very different vehicles. In effect, the Red Bull is the ultimate incarnation of a formula car. It has a formula-style layout, but with a closed cockpit, covered wheels, and a fan system. So essentially, it kind of combines the best aspects of most different racing types, such as Formula, Le Mans Prototype, and Can-Am. And all of those things put together do certainly make an incredible vehicle. The only major change that I would have personally liked to see happen to the Red Bull is for it to have a gas turbine engine. I think that would have been incredible, and it would have just added to the insanity of the vehicle. Unfortunately, they chose not to do that, and of course gas turbines are not without disadvantages such as low-end acceleration, but this is an imaginary vehicle, so they could have got around that. Getting back to the point though, this was designed to be, and is, the ultimate race car. Now though, let's compare that to, arguably, Gran Turismo's ultimate supercar, the Tomahawk. Now, the Tomahawk, in all of its forms, is an incredibly quick and effective performance car on Gran Turismo. Even the entry-level Tomahawk S, with less than half the power of this Ultimate X version, is still one of the quickest supercars in the game, one of the quickest 700 pp cars when down-tuned, and is just a brilliant all-round car. The GTSR takes it even further, but kind of falls into a bit of a no-man's land because it's not quick enough to be the quickest, and not slow enough to be pp useful. This car, though, really does take it to the extreme. By far the most power in the game at just under 2,700 horsepower with an oil change. Surprisingly though, alongside the Red Bull, neither of these vehicles have particularly impressive amounts of torque. The Red Bull has 581 foot-pounds, and even this car only has roughly the same kind of torque as a fully tuned Dodge Charger, so not that impressive really given the power in comparison. Now, for 1 million credits, as most of the VGTs are, the value for money on the Tomahawk X in particular is almost impossible to beat. Everyone says about how good the Tomicara ZZ2 is for sheer value for money, and also the Supra is mentioned a lot for that same value. But a lot of people overlook just how quick the Tomahawk is for the money. For 1 million credits, or for any price, There's literally nothing that comes close for straight line performance, not without glitching or modding or hacking the game, that is. Well over 400 miles per hour, over 450 in some cases, completely unrivaled acceleration, especially mid-range and top end, and although it is not quite as quick around twisty circuits as the Red Bull, it's still a strong overall vehicle. So that's it for the overview of the two cars. Now let's compare them from a spec point of view. Now, as far as our point-to-point matchup between the two vehicles, this is probably one of the most predictable matches in the entire series that has been and that is still to come, because after all, you're pitting the ultimate race car against the ultimate car. And of course, the Tomahawk is going to win. It would win against pretty much anything, because it's just so overwhelmingly good. It's kind of like the Veyron in that regard. The Veyron is not the best of supercars on the game, but for sheer numbers, it's very difficult to beat, and the Tomahawk shares that. Now, interestingly, the Tomahawk does not have a total victory over the Red Bull. There are a couple of points awarded in favour of the Red Bull. Now, first of all, we have the price. We've already mentioned it. The Tomahawk is 6 times cheaper than the Red Bull. Of course, it gets the point there. But to be fair, both vehicles are worth more than their price. You could easily charge 20 or more million credits for both of these cars, and they would be fully worth it. And to be honest, I wouldn't actually have minded if these cars cost that much, because it would mean that less people would have them, and those that do have them would have had to prove themselves as true drivers to earn that car, rather than just buying it because it costs the same as a Mazda RX-8 race car. There's no skill involved, and so everyone ends up having one. If it had been something that you had to attain, or even unlock, rather than buy, I think that would have been much better. But be that as it may, that's not what they did, and I can't change that. So as far as price, the Tomahawk definitely gets the point. As far as engine capacity, we're actually not told what the size of the Red Bull's engine is, but we can very confidently and safely assume that the Tomahawk is much larger at 7 litres, whereas we know that the Red Bull is nowhere near that. It's believed to be around 3 litres or so, perhaps a little smaller or larger, but in any case, it's nowhere near 7 litres, and that's for sure. As far as PP, interestingly, the Red Bull wins. 979 PP to the Tomahawk's 964. Both are among the highest in the game, of course, but it's perhaps surprising that the Red Bull is higher, given how much quicker the Tomahawk is in a straight line. It has literally over 100 miles per hour of advantage in top speed, but around the track, and interestingly as well, even off the line, the Red Bull can be a superior vehicle when tuned properly. So, although it's strange that the PP is higher, it's most definitely justified. As far as power, well, it's a very easy win. It's got 1,000 horsepower more. Of course, the Tomahawk wins. Nothing else in the game comes close. As far as torque as well, we already mentioned it earlier, the Tomahawk gets the point there also, but as I said earlier, neither car has anywhere near the kind of torque that you'd probably expect them to. More so the case with the Tomahawk than the Red Bull, but both nonetheless. As far as weight, the Red Bull gets its second point at only 545 kilos to the Red Bull's 749. Now, both vehicles are extremely light given what they have to work with. The Red Bull has a huge amount of tech put into it, and although you may expect it to be even lighter than that, given it weighs around the same as a Formula 1 car, you have to bear in mind just how much more tech and mechanical components are in the Red Bull compared to a Formula 1 car. A Formula 1 really is a bare-bones machine. The Red Bull has a lot of extra equipment, such as the canopy, the wheel covers, the fan system especially, which all adds weight. So in reality, the Red Bull is actually an engineering marvel, even though it's not a real one. As far as the Tomahawk, 749 kilos may not sound that great. That's 1 kilo less than the Peugeot 905 Le Mans car, but you've got a large engine, you've got all-wheel drive, and it's not a bare-bones open-wheel racer. It's a full-bodied, supercar-esque vehicle. So, still, that weight is very impressive, and it's of course not the lightest of the Red Bulls, that actually goes to the GTSR version at 664 kilos, if I remember correctly. As far as horsepower per tonne, well, of course the Tomahawk's going to win, but both vehicles are incredible. Both of these cars put out at or over 3 horsepower per kilo. It's actually just under 3 horsepower per kilo, 2,998 horsepower per tonne for the Red Bull, and 3.6 horsepower per kilo, or 3,598 horsepower per tonne for the Tomahawk. Now, to put that into perspective, basically the top tier superbikes in real life achieve a goal, really, when they have 1 horsepower per kilo or better. So this is 3 times better than a superbike in real life. Now, obviously, these cars are not real and could not be. They would kill you just by driving them. But it gives you some idea of just how insanely efficient, really, these cars are from an engineering and mechanical build point of view. And finally, although we're not awarding points for it, it is to be noted that, of course, the Tomahawk was the quicker around our track, and that is very dependent on the driver, the tuning, and the track. In the case of these two vehicles, on a twisty circuit, the Red Bull can win, and usually will, as long as the Tomahawk cannot use its top-end power. Once it can do that, it's game over, of course. But as a comparison, and I will put the exact laps in the description below, the Red Bull did a lap of Route 7 in 3 minutes and 10 seconds, compared to the Tomahawk's 2:44. A pretty massive difference between the two. But that's it overall for this week's Rivals matchup, and overall the scores are 5 points to the Tomahawk, and, respectably, 2 points to the Red Bull. And to be fair, to get any points against the Tomahawk is pretty impressive. But that's it overall for this particular matchup. As always, if you would like to see more info or tune setups, as I mentioned at the start of the video, then you can find that along with the exact lap times in the description down below. And if there are other Rivals matchups which you would like to see, be sure to comment those down below. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.